22. About 8 days. Hi, my name is Juanita Brent, State Representative for Ohio House 22. About 8 days ago, the state of Ohio, with overwhelming support, decided we wanted to legalize cannabis, not just medically, but also making sure that we had adult use here within our state. But that's just not enough. The people that have been the most vocal against and being anti-cannabis has been our governor and other problematic people right here in the State House of the Majority Caucus. And that's why we're working with other people. It's called the Cannabis for the People. Cannabis for the People has to do with people who've been working in cannabis, people who've been incarcerated by cannabis, people who have been licensees of cannabis, people who have been in the policy world, the people who have been doing the work. So as we go forward to deciding on what cannabis looks like, we have to make sure this is focused on the people and not on politicians, especially not politicians who have been anti-cannabis. I'm so grateful today to be working with people that I've been working with for a long time. These people who have been in this field for a long time, not just a short time. During this process, they have been working in different entities of policy, expungement, making sure we have different information. Whatever the field it is, they have been working in this field. And I know that the state of Ohio will benefit from the voices of the people that are standing here with me and the many other people who I've been working with as a legislator. But this journey that we've been on has not just started with me. I've been working on this journey with so many other people, particularly the Honorable Dan Ramos, the Honorable Representative Upchurch, Rep. Weinstein, Rep. Frazier, Rep. Callender. There's so many of us that have been working on this. And the biggest thing that we've been doing is working with the people, making sure that expungement and people who have been incarcerated have been put at the forefront, making sure that when we talk about the taxes, that it's going back to the economic investment of those communities that have been disproportionately affected, because the people must come first. So as we talk about cannabis for the people, we must start with that today. So we're gonna start off today with Tim Johnson, and then we're gonna have Jana Holly, then we're gonna have Tasha Roundtree, and then we're gonna finish up with Karen. So I thank you so much for listening to Cannabis for the People.
Hi, I am Tim Johnson. Thank you, Rep. Brent, for spearheading all that you've done since you've taken office in Ohio and representing the people from the entire state. Thanks everyone that's here today to help out with this, to share your input, and a big thank you to the 2+ million people in Ohio that voted yes on issue 2. What I'd like to address is a couple of issues that have been brought forth through the media by political leaders in our state, referencing to a smoking ban. This is something, the combustion of cannabis, the full combustion. This is something that, through the right of this program, as adults 21 and over, that we should not even be, it shouldn't even be a discussion. The whole point of being able to smoke cannabis, if that's your preferred method of intake, on your own private property, on the private property of any business association, any business company, there should not be a problem with in this promulgating the rules in this to create that language that said that smoking's not. No one in this industry that I've ever heard of has ever said that we just want to blatantly walk down the streets with a blunt, a joint, or whatever you want to call it, and just smoke and blow it in people's faces. No one has ever said we want to go to entertainment arenas or go out to dine and sit in there and smoke while we're dining or we're entertaining. That's never been said by people in this industry. Total myths. So all we're doing is asking for fair and equal language that addresses the fact that it is okay for a compliant participant in the adult choice program in Ohio to have that right to smoke without interference. Second thing I'd like to bring up is public education. How are we going to do this? We see a lot of commercials and we hear a lot of advertising and so forth on various drug products that come out, even some on alcohol, tobacco, and so forth. There's nothing to say that in the rule creation that we can't create on the taxes side a fund, an educational fund, so that we can put out public service announcements. We can use billboards, we can use radio announcements, television announcements to educate the public to the safetiness of of cannabis itself, the whole consumption factor. As you know, we've had the medical program in Ohio now for going on 5 years, and contrary to rumors that are out there, we're not seeing ERs filled with children. It's not happening. There's still no deaths recorded. If law enforcement has anything on OVIs, it's very minimal, for the mere fact that to prove in a court of law in Ohio an OVI based on metabolites, it's very difficult to get done. So the educational part we need to reach out to, as well as be inclusive in this. We need to bring in the medical field. They need to be educated on as well. We also need to bring in the judicial system, the criminal justice system, from law enforcement working the street, clear up through the judge and the courts, so that they're aware of this program and the rules that apply to it. They need to be educated as well as the general public, but we would like to see language in there that does address getting information out to the people in the state of Ohio as far as the truths and the realities of consumption of cannabis in Ohio. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jana Holly with Harvest of Ohio, a medical marijuana company in the state of Ohio where our CEO, Arian Kirkpatrick, is the first Black woman in the state of Ohio to be vertically integrated. On behalf of our CEO, Arian Kirkpatrick, and COO, Monica Davis, two sisters who are truly trailblazers in this industry, we want to thank Representative Brent for inviting us here today and ensuring that Harvest of Ohio is at the table and our voices are heard on issues that will impact our communities and the cannabis industry. Ohio's 2016 medical marijuana law required 15% of all licenses to grow, process, and sell marijuana be awarded to companies majority owned and operated by a racial minority. The initial minority set-aside program is how we are able to stand here before you today as a Black-owned business vertically integrated in the cannabis industry. But once we were awarded the license, the minority set-aside was challenged. And in November of 2018, a Franklin County judge struck down the provision as it applied to cultivators and processors and found that there were no disparities and no need for the set-aside. But how can you find that there are no disparities when a disparity study had not been conducted? We are confident with a proper disparity study, the results will show what we have known all along, that Ohio's cannabis industry is not equitable. And that is why it is imperative that legislators move forward with and implement the Social Equity and Jobs Program. For far too long, minorities and women have been presented with multiple challenges in their efforts to access and establish thriving businesses in many industries, especially those that are majority man-driven like cannabis, construction, and technology. Having programs in place such as the Social Equity and Jobs Program is a step closer to providing minorities and women with the equitable opportunities needed to have these industry doors open. Ensuring that the new cannabis bill and program is equitable is personal for us, as we continue to fight to be in spaces where the doors have traditionally been closed for us and individuals in our communities. With the majority of citizens voting in favor of Issue 2, it is evident that the narrative and stigma associated with marijuana is finally taking a turn. With that should come marijuana reform and the expungement of cannabis criminal records. Expungement of criminal records changes the trajectory for many individuals and families, giving people the opportunity to start over, get a job, find housing, provide for their families, and contribute to the economic success of our communities. This is a crucial moment for our state to do what is right and change marijuana policy across the board to benefit those individuals and communities that have been impacted the most. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen O'Keefe. I direct the state legislative department at the nonprofit Marijuana Policy Project, which works to legalize cannabis nationwide with a focus on justice and equity. I live in your neighbor to the north, Michigan, and we will miss your cannabis tax revenue, but we congratulate you on this huge step forward for justice and for liberty. Last week, as you know, Ohio voters voted decisively to recognize that nearly a century of marijuana prohibition has been just as disastrous a failure as the 13 years of alcohol prohibition in this nation. Now it's time for the legislature and the governor to listen and to implement the will of the people. Ohio needs to stop ruining lives over cannabis, to repair the harm done by prohibition, and to foster an equitable industry. Any legislation on this issue should expand, not restrict, equity and justice. Ohio should promptly do the following to foster cannabis justice. First, it should implement Issue 2's Social Equity and Jobs Program to ensure that those most impacted by the war on cannabis can benefit from this new industry. Ohio should repeal its unscientific per se law that criminalizes drivers for having trace amounts of THC or metabolites in their system hours or even days after impairment has worn off. Ohio should also enact a law to automatically expunge criminal records that are a weight that prevent people from getting on with their lives and having opportunities. Ohio should also set up a process to automatically reconsider sentences for cannabis prisoners and people who are on probation for cannabis so that we can free cannabis prisoners. There are also a number of things Ohio should not do. Ohio should not increase the cannabis taxes that are in Issue 1, which are roughly on par with Michigan's. Ohio should not redistribute those cannabis taxes. Issue 2 thoughtfully allocates 36% of the cannabis tax revenue to the host communities. It allocates 25% to substance abuse treatment and education, 3% to education, and 36% for social equity and the jobs program. This equity fund can be used to support impacted individuals who are entering the cannabis businesses, as well as for legal aid, youth development, violence prevention, preventing youth cannabis use, criminal justice reform, and cannabis jobs training. Cannabis prohibition has been enforced in a staggeringly unequal manner. Cannabis taxes should be used to uplift those communities, not to double down on mass incarceration. Ohio should also not increase Issue 2's penalty for cannabis use in public. Issue 2 already penalizes the public use of cannabis, even outdoors, with a $100 fine. Those penalties are harsher than the penalties for smoking cigarettes in a crowded restaurant. A higher fine would not be a deterrent or a harsher penalty, but it would be devastating to people who are struggling to make ends meet. Ohio should also not impose a lower potency cap. Most cannabis consumers, according to polls, are using cannabis for pain relief or sleep aid. Issue 2 prevents a too low potency cap that deprives individuals of the relief that cannabis can provide them with higher THC and that simply forces them to inhale more times. A low potency cap would also drive the concentrate market to underground hazardous labs at homes and garages and to the illicit market. The legislature must resist any impulse to create Prohibition 2.0. Instead, Ohio should focus on the important work of further advancing cannabis justice. Thank you so much, Representative Brent, for your leadership. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Latasharry Roundtree. I'm the CEO and the founder of GreenTree Alternative Solutions. I started off as a medical marijuana patient, as a refugee patient, because the state of Michigan was only allowed to handle Michigan residents. I'm grateful for Representative Brent for having us here today and for getting us here to this point and never giving up that fight. With the help of Noohra Labs and the help of Midwest Kennel Women, we've been able to, in Dayton, Ohio, pull off more than 3,500 expungements, which means we've been able to help people get into homes. We've been able to help people establish residency so they could return back to schools. We've helped young black men who in Dayton, Ohio were receiving 7 of the 10 tickets, which means they were being prevented from going to school, from receiving housing. They were receiving no financial aid to further exceed their expectations in life. With this, we'll be able to help them receive equity to go from underground to above their expectations in acquiring social equity for license to get in the industry that they were, quite frankly, successful in. Imagine being successful in an industry and then told that because of your success, you can't be in this industry. Let's open up those doors and turn what we once called hustlers into Fortune 500 companies. Let's give them the tools. Let's fund these young people so that they can fund community centers. Let's turn this around so that things that we thought were negative can be positive. We work with the University of Dayton Governor's Expedited Pardons and Clemency Program. Who would have ever thought that would be a possibility to say, not only can we get you a clean record, we can actually get you a pardon. We can help you clean your life so that you can actually stand before your kids at career day and say, what do you do for a living? And you can say, I am a cultivator at Harvest, a Black-owned and operated cultivation center. And we help patients who are suffering from MS, who are suffering from cancer. Imagine being a nurse and you can help cancer patients, or you can help women like me who suffer from polycystic ovarian, who had a 10-pound tumor. Imagine being able to be proud of what you do. This is what Issue 2 does. We are no longer looked at as dealers, but as healers. We can absolutely be proud. We can sit in a church and no longer have to hold our heads down, but lift our heads up in prayer and say, God provided us with everything that we need, as in the Bible in Genesis. Everything you need will come from a seed-bearing plant. Now that is not just a spoken word, it is actually true. And now it is protected by our Constitution and by the people's vote. That should be upheld as any other thing that we vote on. It should be upheld and respected by the people. We should never be limited by our imagination, and we should not be limited by the law. The people have spoken. The politicians should listen, respect, and make the people's will the law. They should also make sure that it is fair and equitable so that women and other minorities have a fair chance at the American dream. We shouldn't have to worry about what happened with alcohol in our neighborhoods. On every street corner, in every Black community, there was a drive-through, a liquor store. If we're going to have this, we need to have those conversations to make sure that there is a dispensary on every corner, that those dispensary has an opportunity for someone that looks like me to not only work there, but own it as well. We don't need every Black community to be infiltrated by every out-of-town MSO to come in and try to now sell us the very weed that we were going to jail for. We need to make sure that we have a chance, that we can send our kids to private schools, that we can make sure that we can have and fund grocery stores, because we're in Dayton, Ohio. We live in a food desert. Imagine being able to fund farmers markets. Imagine being able to fund nutritional programs for our senior citizens. Imagine all the possibilities that Issue 2 will allot for us to do. It is phenomenal that we have gotten to this point. And I just wanted to thank everyone who voted, and I wanted to thank everyone who has pushed us this far for getting us this far. And as one of the first women who only is allowed to grow cannabis in the state of Ohio because Paragon Development opened its doors when it was not mandatory. They did that because that is their values. If we take away a company's option to give values of equity, then we have failed as a state to provide our own residents with the security and protection of the American dream. This should not just be for the rich and famous. This should absolutely be for every American, for every veteran, for every person. You should have the opportunity to live a functioning and positive, purposeful, meaningful life. Thank you.
I am so excited about the Cannabis for the People because it's the people's will that got us here to make sure that cannabis is legalized. It's the people's will to want to see more research. It's the people's will to see more diversity when it comes to ownership, that we have more veterans, more disabled, more people of color, more variety in where that is going when it comes to ownership. It is the people's will to make sure that our law enforcement is informed that they're not recriminalizing people for something that's going to be legalized within our community right now. This is the cannabis for the people, not the state house, not the governor, not these politicians, but cannabis for the people. This is the people. This is the people who do the work. These are the people who do the expungement. These are the people who work at our dispensaries, who own license holders, who have been former law enforcement, who are telling us, the state house, what we should need to do for the people. Cannabis for the people has to be at the forefront of what we do in these next steps, which are so vital here in the state of Ohio. I'm so proud to stand here and work with every one of them because they've been fighting, been showing up, and been testifying and giving us policy ideas for a long time here within the state of Ohio. And we are just getting started on how we are going to deal with cannabis for the people. My name is Juanita Brent. I just happen to be a state representative, and I'm so glad that Cannabis for the People is on the move to make sure that we can get cannabis equitable and fair within the state of Ohio. Thank you so much.